Hello, Mike Hako, and welcome, or good afternoon. Thanks for joining us, the joint AEN and PSM hearing. It's Monday, February 5th. And we're here in room 225 in video conferencing, which includes the audio and video of remote participants. It's being streamed live on YouTube. In the unlikely event that we have some tech issues and we've got to close the hearing down, we'll reconvene at 1:01 p.m. on Wednesday, February 7th in room 224.
I'm sorry, Chair. Behind you, I can't hear.
Oh.
Can you? I don't know.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Because of our 90-minute time limit for hearings, there'll be a 2-minute time limit for all testifiers, and we'll have a virtual countdown timer on the Zoom screen. So first bill is SB 2356 relating to wildfires, establishing the Department of Defense within the Department of Defense, the position and duties of State Wildfire Marshal, the position and duties of State Wildfire Chief, the State Wildfire Corps, and the State Wildfire Fuel Reduction Task Force. First up is Michael Walker from DLNR.
Aloha, Mike Halko, Chair, and members of the committee. My name is Michael Walker. I'm Department of Land and Natural Resources, Division of Forestry and Wildlife's Wildland Fire Protection Forester, and the department stands on its written testimony, and I'm available for questions.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Next is Kazuo Todd with the Hawaii Fire Department on Zoom.
They're unavailable on Zoom, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Clay Charnick. Sure I butchered your name.
That's all right, Trowernick. Yeah, thanks to Chair and the members. I am just submitted written testimony. I am a University of Hawaii extension specialist, but testifying as a private individual. And I have submitted my written testimony and I'm available for further questions.
Okay. And then we have Tamara Pelton submits comments. Gerard Silva is opposed. Blake O'Shea from the Governor's Office has comments. Kazuo Todd, Hawaii Fire Department has comments. Chris Caulfield from the Democratic Party is in support. Members, are there any questions? Yes. And I think you have someone else. Oh, okay. Yeah, please.
Hello, Chair Gabbard, Chair Wakai, David Rogers with the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations. Sorry for submitting late comments to this bill. We just hope you would consider Senate Bill 30898, which would reestablish the State Fire Marshal at the office of the DLAR. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry, anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Questions? Yes.
Okay, I guess starting with Department of Land and Natural Resources and Department of Labor, perhaps if you could briefly outline some of the background on the current efforts within the department. And I guess there seems to be some difference between, the legislative measures seeking to reinstate the position of a fire marshal, while at the same time the administration position seems to be looking to reestablish the position within Department of Labor.
Yes, because the State Fire Council falls under the DLAR statutes, the Governor's Office and the DLAR thought it would be best placed that the Fire Marshal be within the DLAR. So we would like to see that reestablished.
Yes, and as a member of the Fire Council, and the council being the de facto fire marshal currently, it makes sense to place the marshal within the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations.
So you agree with about the DLR, Senate Bill 3098, using that as the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can you explain why that differentiation is being proposed? Because it would seem as though if Department of Land and Natural Resources is sort of acting, in that capacity to a certain extent, what role does the fire marshal play if it's within a different department? Is it to provide more resources or to garner, additional interagency assistance? What is the background?
Well, so the current council's seat is in DLIR, and the main focus of the council is involved in the fire codes. And so that's really the bulk of the work that they've been tasked with, that the marshal would take over. And so keeping it in the same place makes sense to us. DLNR is by Chapter 185 required to be the primary responder for forestry and wildlife lands. And that's where our main focus is. The structural components of the fire code and everything is a bit out of our wheelhouse. And so having the marshal be in charge of that and being seated where the council currently is makes sense to us.
Okay, so with respect to, say, external funding sources, federal, CWDG grants and all the full range of different opportunities that the state could pursue, would it be the fire marshal's responsibility or DLNR's responsibility to initiate and pursue those kinds of funding opportunities?
So currently the U.S. Forest Service coordinates with Division of Forestry and Wildlife on any kind of federal grant that comes through the U.S. Forest Service has to come through Division of Forestry and Wildlife. So we would definitely be taking the lead on any of those things. And we do. We have state fire assistance grants, which is now state fire capacity, I believe, and rural fire capacity, which is formerly known as the volunteer fire assistance grant program. Those come through us. This community wildfire defense grant programs come through us, as well as the wildland urban interface grant program, all come through us. So the language in the bill that puts the marshal within the Department of Defense mentions something about grant programs, but they can't do that because the legal relationship is with the U.S. Forest Service and Division of Forestry and Wildlife.
I see. So with respect to the Department of Labor component, does that mean Department of Labor and the fire marshal and the council would be focusing primarily on structures, more urban type of prevention and responses, and then Department of Land and Natural Resources would be more external, outdoors, natural resources, public lands kinds of responsibilities?
Well, the way I understand Senate Bill 3098, which is the governor's bill, outlines some of the responsibilities of the state fire marshal. One is to review the emergency resources that are available in the state to be deployed to address fires. I hope that answers your question.
Okay.
So Department of Land and Natural Resources is the primary responder on 26% of the lands in the state. And so those are all the forestry and wildlife lands, about 1 million acres. And then we would co-respond with the county fire departments, U.S. Department of Defense, as well as Department of Interior, and for another 32% of the lands in the state. So that's a coordinated effort that we are collaborating on. It's called a co-response area. And we also co-respond with the county fire departments outside of that as well. So whenever they need us to fill in with additional suppression resources, we come in by request from them. So but there is wildland areas that the counties are primarily responsible for. And the fire marshal will be able to, one of the main things that I'm really concerned about is adding in new wildland urban interface language into the state's fire code. And that will be under the marshal's purview. And then once the marshal is in office, whichever bill ends up passing and wherever they're seated, they'll come up with their staffing needs, et cetera, unless it's dictated by one of these bills that passes. So they could provide additional firefighting resources as well. I think if the legislature wants DLNR, Forestry and Wildlife, to expand their role, they should expand Chapter 185 in order to give us more purview of wildland areas that are not state-owned, to be private or county lands.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a late testifier, Hawaii Fire Department on Zoom.
Unmuting is good. Hey, my name is Kazuo Todd. I'm from the Hawaii Fire Department. I was kind of just interested in figuring out where this bill was going. I definitely wanted to say I'm for putting money towards an air fleet, putting money towards addressing wildfire. I had some concerns though, because it seemed like we're standing up another agency under DOD or something like that to deal with wildfire when we already have existing agencies that are responding and part of that response force. And so, I kind of wanted to talk today and try to figure out where this was going. I just saw Mike Walker up there. Kind of interesting to see him because he is sort of the other side of our attack package, so to speak. So for the Big Island of Hawaii, we have a great working relationship with basically Department of Forestry and Wildlife under DLNR, and they are a huge component of our response to wildland fires. We're a huge advocate for them getting funding because their vehicles and response packages are getting pretty old. And we're also very much an advocate for establishing like a state air fleet that can be responding to major issues, whether regardless of what island it is, because us, driving trucks over the bridges that don't exist is not something that's quite doable quite yet. So, an air fleet is definitely something I'd be an advocate for, but I did want to put out my concerns that this seemed to be standing up something that hasn't existed in the past when we already have established structures to go forward. And so pretty much that was the reason I wanted to jump in and throw my 2 cents and the Hawaii Fire Department's 2 cents in. I'm not speaking on behalf of the State Fire Council because we have not had a chance to meet and talk about bills and what our official stance would be. So this is just me representing the Hawaii Fire Department.
Great. Thank you, Chief.
Huh?
Any other questions?
Chair,
Yes.
DOD's not here, right? DOD.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the next measure, SB 2561, relating to animal endangerment, prohibits intentionally leaving or confining pet animals in a vehicle under conditions that endanger their health, safety, or well-being. Permits law enforcement officers, animal control officers, and firefighters to enter an unattended vehicle to protect the health, safety, or well-being of a pet animal that is endangered by being left or confined in an unattended vehicle. Allows private citizens to rescue a pet animal that has been left in an unattended vehicle under certain circumstances. First up is Attorney General.
And good afternoon, Chair Gabbard, Chair Hawai'i, and members of the committees. As indicated in our testimony, we just have concerns about the language in terms of this being an enforceable violation. And we also have other comments about other sections of the bill as it's currently written. But as indicated on our second page of our testimony, there is currently a subsection specifically for vehicles already that in existence in our animal cruelties in the second degree statute, which not only is it a misdemeanor, so it's a higher severity, but there also is a lot more that a court can sentence a defendant to if this were to apply. So we just would note that and offer our comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Lindsay Verhelig, Animal Legal Defense Fund, Kathy Gogol from Animal Rights Hawaii, Ben Robinson and Lisa Bishop all in support, and Gerard Silva in opposition. Any questions? Anyone else? First, anyone else wishing to testify, please.
Aloha, I'm Angela Melody Young, testifying on behalf of Rescue of Animal Rights. And we are in strong support. So this is a good policy and it lets the public rescue a living creature if it's in danger or will experience imminent harm if the situation continues. And this kind of policy really teaches people to discern when to act upon this and to rescue the creature. Although we're not talking about science experiment animals in this specific policy, I'm just going to set an example with this federal law I'm going to refer to, the Animal Welfare Act, which is a federal regulation to set the parameters to animal welfare within the limits of laboratory experiments. So from this example of a federal law I'm going to read to you from, you can get an idea of why it's important to set health and safety standards in Hawaii state law about rescuing animals. Because people, they just don't get it. Okay, so the Animal Welfare Act was signed into law on August 24th, 1966. It is the only federal law in the United States which regulates the treatment of animals in research, teaching, testing, exhibition, transport, and by dealers. The Animal Welfare Act requires that minimum standards of care and treatment be provided for certain animals bred for commercial sale, used in research, teaching, or testing, transported commercially, or exhibited to the public. The act is enforced by the USDA and the Animal Plant Health Inspection Service Office and the Animal Care Office from the USDA. So the Animal Welfare Act was amended a number of times since 1966, and the Animal Welfare Information Center was mandated under the Act's 1985 amendment, and this includes the Improved Standards for Laboratory Animals Act. Therefore, as part of this mission from this new mandate, it provides information about how to help people understand the law and its requirements as it relates to health and safety standards of animals and living creatures. Thank you so much.
Members, any questions for our testifiers? Okay, I'm just going to decision making. Whatever you want. I like to try.
I heard that. The only no taxes.
You, Mike.
No taxes. On the first one, I was thinking based on the. Should we recess? No. Based on DNR. Okay, having conferred with Chair PSM on the first measure, SB 2356, the chair's recommendation will be to defer indefinitely the SB 2356 and go with the recommendation from DLIR and from DLNR to go with the SB 3098 as the vehicle. Okay. Any questions on AEN? Chair votes aye.
Are you deferring or are we holding?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're deferring. Sorry, long day. Yeah.
Same recommendation for PSM.
Okay. And then on the second one, SB 2561, the chair's recommendation will be to pass with amendments. We'd like to incorporate the Attorney General's amendments into the bill. Any discussion? Chair votes aye.
Chair's recommendation on SB 2561 is to pass with amendments. Chair Gabbard votes aye. Vice Chair Richards is excused. Senator DeCoite.
Aye.
I'll vote yes. Senator Awa.
Aye.
Recommendations adopted.
For PSM, same recommendation to pass this measure with amendments. Any discussion? If not, Senator LaFontaine, I vote yes.
Okay, Chair's recommendation is to pass SB 2561 with amendments. Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Fukunaga.
Aye.
Senator Rhodes.
Aye.
Senator Awa.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, recommendations adopted.
Thank you. And that adjourns the